Invisible Man is the third book that I want to discuss with you today. And this is a book of such powerful political and social activism that we may lose sight of how it's also a book about beauty and truth. This is a book about race and identity. Ralph Ellison, one of the central African-American writers of the mid-20th century. And like David Copperfield, like 1984, it's the story of an individual trying to be the hero of his own life. A story of an individual struggling against society's assumptions about who he is and what he should be. Now, there are many moments in this book which are clearly unique to the African-American experience. And many of my friends who teach this book, and I who I've taught this book, will very often work with students to show that part of the innovation of Invisible Man and part of its impact on American literature was to make real, vivid, and powerful the African-American experience to readers who could not understand it, who hadn't seen it, who needed to see empathy and power in the lives of the oppressed. And yet, there is one moment that I love. Here is Ellison as a young man. Midway through the novel, the young hero is walking through the streets in Harlem. He'd grown up in the South and he comes to New York in the 30s, and he's walking down the street and he smells roasting yams from a street peddler. And the quotation I have is, "They bring me a stab of swift nostalgia." Love this moment. It's like a smell, a taste. How many times has this happened to you? When you taste something or smell something and it brings back a world. Marcel Proust's Remembrance of Things Past. 7 volumes generated by the memory of a young man who dips a cookie in a cup of tea. And for Ralph Ellison's character, the swift nostalgia comes with the yam. I took a bit, finding it as sweet and hot as any that I'd had, and I was overcome with such a surge of homesickness that I turned away to keep my control. I walked along munching the yam and just as suddenly overcome by an intense feeling of freedom simply because I was eating while walking along the street. It was exhilarating. I no longer had to worry at who saw me or what was proper. I am what I am. And I found this wonderful picture of yams roasted, bursting with flavor and aroma. And this moment of power, this is like that moment with Mr. Dick or that moment with the Old Curiosity Shop. It's a moment of the sublime. It is a moment in a narrative when a character realizes, I am what I am. And the narrator, I no longer felt ashamed of the things I'd always loved. I probably could no longer digest many of them. What was it? How much I had lost by trying to do only what was expected of me instead of what I myself had wished to do. Let me pause and repeat that. How much time have we lost by trying to do only what was expected of us instead of what we wished to do? Do not feel ashamed of the things you love. This is part of the lesson. Continue on the yam level and life would be sweet. Yes, somewhat yellowish. Love this bit of humor here that Ellison injects. Yet the freedom to eat yams on the street was far less than I'd expected upon my coming into the city. An unpleasant taste bloomed in my mouth now as I bit the end of the yam and threw it into the street. It had been frostbitten. This is the beautiful thing about this. First, there is the pang of nostalgia. Then there is the taste. Then there is the beauty. Then there is the realization. And then there is the moment when you realize, wait a minute. What is the unpleasant taste in all of this? I always like to define the word nostalgia as a memory of something that never happened. And in a way, that's part of what this scene is about. It's not just about beauty. It's not just about recognizing what you love. It's not just about memory. It's about recognizing as well that sometimes you can live life at the level of the yam, and it would be sweet. But on the city street, you're going to have a bitter taste every now and then. Ellison raises the question of what it means to have a beautiful aesthetic experience, not in memory, not in your mind, but standing on a cold and dirty city street. What is the relationship here between the social world and the experience of desire? Do we live life at the level of the yam? I no longer feel ashamed of the things I loved. I loved books. I love beautiful things. I love characters. And I'm going to hold on to that. I'd love to live life at the level of the yam. And one of the challenges, of course, is not just biting into a bitter end. One of the challenges is recognizing that sometimes novels may take us to places that we do not want to be. That what the modern contemporary novel is doing is it's taking the legacy of Dickens, of Orwell, and of Ralph Ellison, and it's raising the question, can the novel represent the world anymore?